I was being told that I was having some lagging issues. So if somebody, and I apologize, I know it's a pain for you guys to have to come on and go, but if somebody jumps on, if they could just let me know if I have lagging issues. If you're watching this after the fact, I apologize in advance. But where I had left off before the lagging issues was, I just want to show you guys a great deal on this battery. This is from the company OKMO, OKMO, sorry about that. This is just a standard 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery. It's got the low temp cutoff. It's only $161 right now on Amazon. So that's a good deal. If any of you guys are in the market for lithium iron phosphate battery for one of your projects or something, that's a pretty darn good deal. So I just wanted to bring that up to you guys. I see I got a couple people on here. Am I still freezing or is this better? Someone could let me know. But yeah, guys, just throw me some questions. I mean, in the previous video, it sounded like I had some lagging issues, so I apologize. But what I was asking about was some of the lighting options in here. But you know what I think I'm gonna do is, okay, Eric, it's better. Okay, hey Eric, you were telling me about your you were telling me just about the 7.0 you wanted to build. Why don't you, if you feel comfortable with it, lay out some of your priorities. I'll read them off, and you know, we could kind of touch on those because I think a lot of other people like to hear that stuff. And in the meantime, I'm just going to throw it on the tripod, and I'll show you guys a cool little ventilation setup I figured out here. So again, I was mentioning in the last video that you know, I've taken a lot of inspiration from other people's various builds. I don't know how big the Sienna camper van community is, but I will tell you this: the people who make videos make some pretty good detailed videos. So I got this idea from God, what's his name? Matt, the designer, I think it is. So this is going to be, if somebody could just still confirm that you can hear me okay. So this is going to be a stealthy rooftop vent fan that's going to actually sit in the sunroof, okay? Now, that's been done before. That's not unique to my side. I'll be right back. Hold on one second. Let me show you something. Okay. So I have already tested and used one of these things. So this is just a piece of 1/4-inch plywood, and it's cut just right to where this will slide into the tracks. So it'd be upside down like this. So the fan side would be on the inside. It would slide into the tracks of the sunroof, and then you know you open up the sunroof, and the fan was going to have a suction blowing out. You know, kind of like a very traditional, you know, like a max air fan or something. So this right here is just a radiator fan. They're actually relatively inexpensive. I got it on Amazon. I think this one was rated, if my memory serves me, at like 80 or 800 CFM. I think it was, or somewhere in that neighborhood. Here's the problem though. Like it worked in theory. You know, this whole thing right here. Bobby T, it's good to see you, buddy. This whole, Bobby, so if you could tell me if I'm coming across clear, because there was some indications that it was a little choppy earlier. But on this fan, there was 2 problems with it. Well, 3 problems, really. The other 2 could have been solved, but the biggest thing was I couldn't figure out how to have speeds on this or have variability. In my preferred method is I would have liked to have had a you know, where I can, you know, kind of like a dimmer switch for lights, but a dimmer switch for a fan. I've put a speed controller on other fans, and, you know, that's nice to have that control. I'm sure there's a way to do it, but I messed with a bunch of different parts, and I can never get it to work. But one of the downsides is it was very loud. I think we can all attest to it. And it was pretty energy intensive. This thing, it's rated at 80 watts, but it was actually pulling about 65 or 70. But that's a lot for a vent fan. So I know in theory that will work. Now, like I said, that other YouTuber, he did something very similar. I'm not even sure if he has a Sienna or not, but let's see, Bobby. Yep, you're Lima Char. Okay, perfect. Thanks, brother. I appreciate the confirmation there. He actually bought these computer fans. Now, these actually are rated at about 170 CFM. They're actually pretty high quality. I've messed around with a lot of computer fans, various things. And these were the ones that he used are the best I could decipher. I just kind of went on Amazon and found one that looked like he had it. But a good review. And again, this is not any company that I bought all these on my own. But what's really neat is I found this device right here. You guys see this right here. And it is it's a speed controller. It's called a pulse width modulator, or PWM speed controller. And these fans had what's called a 4-pin. I don't know if you guys could see that right there, but it's got a 4-pin outlet, and this is set up to where these plug right into this little switch or this little controller right here. Okay, and this has slots for 6 fans. So I've ordered 6. I've got 4 on hand. I've got another 2 coming. But let me show you how this works. So these, I just rigged up this little rig right here. There is no circuit protection on it, which is not typically a smart idea. We're just going to do a little experiment. There's a lot of experimenting I do on the background with all this kind of stuff that I'm not sure everyone. Just like you guys would do all kinds of experimenting if you're making something. So, I got this little power bank here. I'm just using this as a demonstrator. And so this is just the 5.5 or 2.5 to 5.5 input here. So that plugs right into here. Okay. And then let's see if this turns on. There we go. So you guys see? I'm going to hit my fingers. These things are pretty, legit fans right here for a computer fan. Like I said, this pulls a rated 170 CFM, okay? So, and then you guys saw I plugged it right in there, so let's get another one here. So this, what makes this so fun is because it's very easy. Let's do this here. Let's pull this off. We're going to plug this into there. Okay. And then, let's see, bring you guys in here. All right. Oh, there we go. You guys can see them both moving. So, and now they're both controlled under a single controller. So, here's my thoughts, guys. You guys tell me if I'm nuts or not here. And again, this is not necessarily a unique idea to me, but I am going to cut another board like this because I know in theory it works. I'm going to put 6 of those fans in there. So, that's going to be for easy math. 150 times 6 is 600 CFM. It's probably going to be close to 700 CFM. I'll put all 4 of them in there, or all 6 of them, I'm sorry. I'll put this little controller right on there. Now I'll have a wire lead off to the side. And, so 700 CFM is quite a bit, because if you look up what your standard 14 by 14 inch vent fan like people use in RVs, those typically have somewhere between, I've seen numbers of 8 to 1100 CFM. So in theory, maybe there's some other factors to where the CFM of each individual fan laid out in there is not necessarily additive. I think it should be, at least in theory. But I could make a stealthy vent fan using these, or a ventilation fan, and it would just be used by popping open the sunroof. So therefore, I don't have a vent fan on the roof. Another positive of these is they use a lot less energy than that big radiator vent fan. These only pull half an amp each at 12 volts, of course. So that would be, these all running full tilt would only be, 30 watts. Am I doing that math right? So that's pretty low. I mean, that's max air fan. So, anyways, that's going to be for this coming week. You know, I've got some stuff to tidy up on the cabinets in there, but that's going to be my idea. Now, I've got a ton of you on here, or quite a few of you guys. So let me answer a few questions, and then we're going to go back to the van because I got cut off in the previous live, but I was asking some questions in the van about lighting, and I want to get your guys' thoughts. So Eric wants to build a camper like number 7, but he's got I always like to see what people's interests are because I think it's going to align with you guys. But this is kind of what he's looking for as far as his goal. So in terms of weight, he has a half-ton truck with an 8-foot bed. So he wants it to look good, and he wants to keep the price down. So he wants to build around a budget. So those seem like good goals, my friend. I like it. What kind of truck do you have? Just curious. Bobby T. Okay, so you told me I'm running clear. Bobby T. Have you seen the Wago wire connectors? Easier than wire nuts, just an FYI. Oh, you know, I think I've seen those. Are those used a lot on AC applications? I think I have used those. I probably need to pick some up. Yeah, the wire nuts. I usually don't use wire nuts. If I'm just kind of mocking some stuff together, I'll use them a lot of times just to, just to kind of speed them along. See, Eric, you have the Ford 4.2 liter. Is that inline 6? If it is, man, I've heard that thing is bulletproof. All right, so this is where I need your guys' help, okay? So we're going to come over to the van, and it's about lighting, okay? So you guys throw out some ideas here. So the lighting that you see in here now, let's actually jump inside this bed boy here. There we go. All right, there we go. Okay, so the lighting that you guys see in here is just the stock lighting. This will stand for about 10 minutes before the close. I'm going to be honest with you, I kind of like the stock lighting. I do want to add some additional lighting. But I watched another video from that guy, but he had figured out a way to run the stock lighting off of the battery. So maybe I might try something like that. In the back, I was talking about, I pulled off this plastic fascia up here. And I had to do something else. But I'm going to put 2 lights in there. That would be perfect for, shooting down on the table in the back here. What else do you guys want? Now, this van is, supposed to be about stealth, so I do kind of want options for lighting kind of lower profile. But, I understand a lot of you guys will be watching live now later. Just let me know. Those are my thoughts. Eric, go for 6-cylinder at 2 years, 0 issues, and that's awesome. There's some of those little issues out there that are little gems. So, you guys have any other questions, or what do you guys think? You want me to just throw this? I'm going to start messing with some wiring back here. You want me to throw this on tripod? Start working with that. If you guys have questions, just pop them up. But I've got nothing else to add. For those who are joining in, I did want to mention. Now this company did send me this battery, but it's like $160 on Amazon. So I just want to throw, if you guys need a 100 amp hour battery, lithium iron phosphate, of course, low temp shutoff, $160. I'll include a link in here when we're done. That's a pretty good deal. So just food for thought there. All right, so let me throw this bad boy up on a tripod, and we'll just start messing with some wiring here and see what we can do. All right. Sorry guys, I'm not a great. I feel like a warm-up act for like a comedian or something, trying to keep this energized. I'm not great at that. All right, let's throw this up here, and I'm just going to start getting some work done now. All right, guys, so let's throw out some random topics. What kind of weather do we got out there? Where's everybody at here? All right. Let me bring this over here. Okay. All right, so Bobby T. I have some LED puck lights that are rechargeable that I'm thinking of using magnets on the inside of the roof to use them. They are RFB. RFB, is that where you can do the different colors? That's an idea right there, right? I mean, these LED lights are so efficient. I'm used to always running, a DC wire to them, but I don't know, maybe for an application like this, especially since I'm not going to take out any internal paneling and stuff. I mean, I'm sure I could run some wires in the internal paneling. I don't know, but maybe little stick-on or magnetic LED lights. I don't know. Maybe that is a good option. So I appreciate that. It's something to think about, you know. RGB. That's right. All right. This right here is this little panel. This sat up here like this. You guys see that? Yeah. Now this I should be able to run some wires to. So I'm gonna dig through my old stash. I'm pretty sure I got two LED puck lights. I'm gonna put these here, and because the wiring is easier on here, or at least I think it should be, I'll wire those directly in. But the idea with this, since I've already had it off, is if you're working out here inside this back area, you could turn those on. But if you also want to be kind of stealthy, I'll eventually close up this rear glass here, so you could, and the two glass on the side are off, so you could probably turn this bad boy on and dim it down too. So I'll be right back. Let me go see if I can dig up a couple LED puck lights. All right. So there is a lot of these that you can buy on Amazon. I mean, that's where I buy most of my stuff. Those other orders, I suppose. You guys can see those stock lights just shut off there. I've used these on my last couple campers though. If you guys are interested, if you guys mention something, I can include a link. The unfortunate thing is I only saw one company that makes this exact variety, and their company name is it's like ACEGO, I can't remember, something like that. But what's nice about these is these are flush mount, because a lot of them you have to have a hole to tuck them into, but these are flush mount. So try to remember how this works here. Okay, so boom. So this outside, it just rotates on. So you pull this off, and it's got these two screw holes right here. And Bob, my friend Bob's been sending me texts with a few bits of information. I appreciate that, brother. Thank you. And then all you have to do, if you're going to flush mount it on something, so for example, this right here, is you just throw a hole for the wire. On plastic here, it's not going to be a big deal. You could even, if you didn't want to drill into it, you could probably even just use like some that double-sided heavy-duty tape. They call it VHB tape, I think. But I don't mind it. I'll throw two little screws in there. But so, anyways, I like these lights. I've used these a lot. They're really good, and I really like that flush fit feature. Let's see. Okay, so Eric, let's see what we got. You're in the Pacific Northwest, Olympic Peninsula. Oh boy, I bet that's beautiful. Lots of rain. Can you talk about the Duraback? Did you fiberglass under? How's it holding up? What was the primary exterior weather protection? So on some of the campers, the Duraback was it. You know, as long as it's applied properly, it tends to work out well. It produces a really nice finish. Is it as durable in some ways as maybe something like fiberglass or poor man's, PMF, poor man's fiberglass? That's debatable. I mean, you with fiberglass or with PMF, you actually have a mechanical substrate that the waterproofing material is going on. So most likely that's going to be better. The advantage of the Duraback, though, is it's easy to apply. Well, it's kind of a pain in its own right, but if the surface preparation is right, you can get a really, 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 really nice finish, and it sure is definitely easier than fiberglassing. And for like a person like me, even though Duraback is a pretty nasty chemical unto itself, fiberglass fiberglass resin. It's just not something I could work with. So the Durabac works. One thing I definitely recommend, and this is where I've never specifically myself had this problem, but I have heard of other people who use Durabac, is, over time, at a joining of wood, sometimes they can get like little micro cracks. One thing I've always done is when I put on that 1/4 inch ply on the outside, I'll use a construction adhesive, and I'll specifically use, I like the PL3, PL3, it's a Loctite branded product, and I'll let it squeeze out, and then I'll actually, kind of just clean off the excess and let that harden up over a few days, sand it smooth, and I'll do everything I can to there's no way of getting around, you will need to use body filler, but I'll do everything I can to try to use the least amount I can, but I'll also use their Bondo brand makes a fiberglass, has fiberglass hairs in it, and I really like that stuff. Now, it doesn't come out quite as smooth, and you can put the finer, I don't know if that's the right term, but you can use like the smoother Bondo over it if you don't like the finish on it. But you want to minimize that. I like leaving that squeeze out because that polyurethane is going to lock everything in tight. I think that's where a lot of people have a problem. So, but one thing I always recommend and say is it doesn't have the history of fiberglass or PMF or something like that. So, and it doesn't have that mechanical substrate underneath it. So, for people that are making their own campers, you're going to know it intimately. You put in a lot of work. I recommend that, that's something that you just make sure you maintain, you monitor it, and if you ever do have any problem, you got to fix it right away. PMF is a great option. It's a little bit more tried and true, so to speak. It's been around a while. Because Eric had mentioned he was thinking of PMF. I mean, PMF is what I used for, that white cap on my trailer that runs all, from the roof all the way down to the front there. The limits of, I really like PMF in a lot of ways. It is some extra steps, but it's pretty affordable. The canvas is pretty, I did the canvas and glue method. There's other methods you can do, but the canvas and glue is pretty affordable. You can just use an exterior grade paint, which is easy. You can get it at a box store. It's not as harsh as like a Durabac. The downside of the PMF, though, is if you were building something like 7.0 where you had a lot of angular points, there is challenges that come up in terms of laying that canvas over and getting it to be smooth. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you have to kind of think about that. On the trailer here, because you got to imagine you're laying a piece of fabric over, right? So if you're bending it over a surface where it would like wrinkle or something, that doesn't necessarily go away when you saturate it with the glue. So you have to think about it. So on this camper, I was able to take one single piece of canvas and run it from the back all the way to the front, and then I was able to wrap it up underneath here, and then because the wood came in there, I didn't have to deal with, trying to deal with the canvas kind of, bunching up over itself. I mean, imagine like trying to make a bed with a sheet, right? Like, when you put it over the sides, you got to tuck it. Now, I mean, there might be ways that people have done that. I've seen, a lot of people use PMF and have accomplished that. A lot of people just kind of use trim. They'll patch different pieces together. There is ways to work around it. I'm not an expert on that. I kind of did mine in a way to where I avoided all that just because I was concerned about that. My point to you, though, Eric, is you got to work with that. Now, fiberglass, at least from my experience, yes, you're putting a substrate because just the way it works and how, it'd be most notably with the mat. I've noticed with the cloth, you kind of run into the same problem. If you're using the mat, you can kind of saturate it enough where you can kind of get away with some of, how that mat kind of rolls around edges and stuff. But, fiberglass, it's expensive, particularly the resin. I mean, it's super expensive. And like, obviously a lot of people work fiberglass, so it probably doesn't affect them. But for me, I was really sensitive to it. It's just not pleasant to work with in my experience. So, there's pros and cons to all these methods. And, I guess all I would say is just, do research from a bunch of different sources. If you did go really any of these methods, and you're building your own DIY camper, I think the big thing is just monitor it, particularly after you get it built. When it hits, get some rainstorms like that. Just make sure everything is holding up. I've talked about this before. I use a lot of wood in construction. The cedar and stuff is very resilient, so I don't worry about that. But like on the smooth-sided camper 7.0, like the one you asked about, that's quarter-inch plywood underneath there, and you get that wet, you get a little bit of flexibility, but I mean it could cause damage really quick, and one can make an argument: is wood the best material to use? And the answer, in some ways, is unequivocally no. But it comes down to kind of the practicality of the build, right? I mean, wood is readily available; it's easy to work with. I think more so than other materials, I can kind of mold it into unique shapes. I know wood gets a bad rap for being heavy, but if you use different species and different, like using a quarter-inch ply as opposed to like a three-quarter ply on the outside, you can cut weight pretty significantly. Like I found you could build with wood and make stuff pretty light. But everything is. My point to all this is there is not one single answer. I mean, I know it'd be easy if I could just say, hey, do this, this, and this. But it's kind of everything has a pro and con. Sorry, what's going on, rambling there. Eric, yes, I agree. Try to avoid trim if possible. It's more ways than water can get it. Yeah, I mean that's another thing, and you lose, you lose some of your aesthetic creativity. At the end of the day, I've done fiberglass too. I applaud fiberglass for its protection and how rugged it is. I like the PMF. The PMF, I was unable to get as smooth of a finish, but it was good enough. I feel really confident in its durability and the overall structural strength it provided. But like I talked about, you have the problems with, conforming it around certain shapes. In a lot of ways, though, I kind of always went back to Durabac because Durabac, a lot of the stuff I created was artistic in nature. Like the design and the shape was really important to me. And Durabac just offered, enormous flexibility to do that. And with proper surface preparation, it produces a really nice finish. So everything has pros and cons. Just, that's kind of how that goes. So, all right, let me. I know this is probably boring. I'll probably cut down the live stream here shortly, but I want to leave it up in case you guys have some questions. Okay, so Truth Seeker 8. Have you considered using a hybrid chemically altered compressed wood product called Inventwood, just coming out to retail this year to selected applicants? No, I've never heard of that. So, I mean, it might be a neat product to use. So I don't know anything about it, so I'm not trying to poo-poo it, but one thing that when you say a compressed wood product, maybe it's great. I'm just off the top of my head, the concern that pops in my mind is weight, right? A lot of those compressed wood products, like think of like OSB or particle board furniture or MDF, all variations of compressed board product, they're very heavy traditionally. I suspect, for me, one of the things is I try to build with materials that are easily accessible, stuff I can get at a home store. Obviously, I have went to lumber stores for certain things. I buy a lot of my stuff off Amazon just because it's readily available. It's something that everybody has access to, and it's typically affordable. I don't want to poo-poo it. Maybe that Inventwood is great. So it says Inventwood. This is True Seeker saying it is supposed to be 10 times stronger than steel and 10 times lighter than steel. Well, I mean, I don't know. Let's see what it is. I'm not familiar with it though. Truth Seeker said, I can only imagine how expensive it would be, and I think it's probably very likely. So it might be the best product in the world. I just, that's, again, it's all, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's all about those combination of factors. For me, anyways, but yeah, I'll keep an eye out for it, and maybe it would be a great alternative, KVNT Wrecker. Okay, so it sounds like you've probably heard about it too. It's also carcinogenic. I don't doubt it. I'll tell you guys a story. Actually, let me show you something here. So this is actually held up. I got to give it credit. So see this little white armoire back here? You guys see that? I built that in, oh hell, 2006 maybe. So that thing's almost 20 years old. And that's made out of MDF, believe it or not. The only thing that's not MDF is, I don't know if you noticed the flat panel doors. That's that beaded quarter-inch plywood product you could buy. People used it for like I forgot what it's called, but where people put like the bottom half of a wall, they'll paint it one color and have like a beaded design, and the upper half will be a different color. But that was all made out of MDF. No, it's heavy. I mean, that thing is super heavy. It's a piece of furniture, so I wasn't really worried about weight too much. But I tell you, with the mention of carcinogenic, I remember I hated working with that MDF because it was I would go out and I would like cut pieces for the day, ripping stuff or whatever I'm doing, and like I could feel it, like even with a dust mask, I could feel it in my lungs, and I felt sick. Like I felt like, kind of like that feeling before a cold comes on, and man, I knew, I was like, that's not good. There's been I get that kind of feeling with like fiberglass resin too, but it's nasty stuff, and I actually don't think I've worked with. Sorry, the name of the product escaped me here, but I don't think MDF. Sorry, I don't think I've worked with MDF since, but who knows? It's always good. There's always new products, new technology out there, and who knows, something might come along that's useful. And Truth Seeker's mentioning, and who knows how it handles moisture, termites, beetles, ants, mealworms, etc. Yeah. And here's another factor. And again, I'm talking all this crap about this product. Who knows? Maybe it's the best product in the world. But another thing that strikes me, one of the qualities that make plywood very strong and a very good material to work with is, with the exception of like Luan and some specialty products, the individual plies of the wood are positioned perpendicular to each other. So you have the great, because it's plywood is literally like a thin layer cut off of a tree, right? And so it has a grain structure. It's just a thin piece, the ply, but they put them in an alternating pattern. And what that does is it does two things. It makes the piece of plywood very stable, meaning it's going to be less likely to expand and contract, which is a significant factor when you're building something or a consideration. But number two is it gives it strength, right? Because we all intuitively know, like let's say this is a piece of plywood or a piece of like a 2x4, it's going to be stronger this way than if you put it on its side. Like we know just intuitively that certain orientations of grain on wood give a certain strength. So if you take a piece of plywood and you were alternating those, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. Now, when you get to a product that's like a pressed wood product, you lose, the connections between the individual particles are just through typically a resin. There might be some other kind of adhesive, and so you lose all that directional strength. I mean, again, I don't know. Maybe it's reinforced with fibers or something, or maybe there's some other factor. But anyways, that's just my uneducated thought on that product. But it's exciting. Let's see it come out. Let's see it. Let's see if it would work. Guys, I think I'll probably cut off the live stream. These are some great questions, and I doubt you guys really care to see me pushing wire through plastic and getting frustrated, which is, I think, what will happen. But for those who watch these live streams after the fact, number one, I appreciate all of you guys who checked in. I really do appreciate it. And for those who watch after the fact, just like some of you have already given me some ideas about lighting, mention it, anything. It's always helpful. It's a nice environment to exchange stuff. Good deal on a lithium battery. If you guys are interested, I'll include a link once this uploads. And guys, hope you're all doing well, and go from there. So thanks again.